The Financial Huddle does not provide tax, legal, financial, or other professional advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with their own advisors in these areas.
All right, everybody, huddle up. The play calls in. This is the Financial Huddle. Ready, break.
Welcome, Huddlers and Huddler Nation. Back for our next episode of the Financial Huddle podcast. As usual, I got my cohorts here.
Yeah.
Mr. Ryan Fleming.
Hey, everybody.
And Mr. Brian Manier.
What's up, Eddie?
Yes.
Yeah.
All's good.
Yeah.
All's good in C-Bus. Today's topic is an extremely current event, and we thought we should kind of weigh in a little bit, and as we do in all of our podcasts, promoting financial literacy and trying to make sense out of a lot of things that are happening in the financial world or economy or and what types of things should we be doing or not doing. And so in this case is looking at the government shutdown. How does this impact you, meaning our clients, people out there, and should you be concerned about these current events?
How long is it going to last?
Exactly. So with that, we'll start off with a couple little facts. This is the stat time for this.
We're going stat time early this time.
Early
stats.
Early and often. In some of these things, looking back, we're going to take the last 50 years, there have been 21 government shutdowns. And the average period of that shutdown has been 8.25 days. Now,
so one every other year.
This was interesting.
Yeah.
The longest was 35 days, and this just happens to have occurred during the current president's first term.
Oh.
So,
how many
potentially
days? How many days?
35.
Okay.
35.
A little over a month.
Is that potentially indicative of what we could be looking at here? But most of these have been extremely short term. And, with that being said, when something's very, very short term, human nature often gets involved, when we're looking at investors and we're looking at clients, and we tend to overreact. Not that any of us do, in terms of that.
Never.
But, I kind of equate it to, a lot of people are like, what does the government shutdown mean? I mean, how's that impacting me? Going to, here locally in Columbus, going to an Ohio State football game, stadium's open, the fans are in their seat, and then the teams don't take the field. And they don't take the field because the coaches can't agree on a game plan.
That's the equivalent.
That's the equivalent that we're dealing with
We're
here.
just not going to go.
A couple parties can't agree to.
Dude, I'd hop out of the stands and play if they couldn't do it. I'd hop out and play.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
That would be.
Yeah, Ryan, why don't you jump in a little bit and tell us, what we're recommending or what all this really means?
Yeah, I just think it's. We just want to make sure you adopt the right mindset, in these times of turmoil or uneasiness relative to government shutdowns. What I wanted to do, I just wrote down a few short-term mindsets and the risks associated with dealing with the government shutdowns the wrong way. So I'm just going to hop right into it. One of the biggest risks that a lot of people take during a government shutdown is just panic selling, is what I would call it. Where they react to all the headlines and the buzz, and they go into their portfolios and they just start selling everything to cash.
Human emotions.
Yeah, and that leads into what I would call like chasing safety. And what I mean by that is just moving too much money into cash or overloading liquidity. And when you do that, you miss these big rebounds sometimes. I remember early on in my career, the market had a big flash down, and then like that following Tuesday, it was the highest one-day rise in the market in the history of the stock market. If you miss too many of those, that's going to have a major impact. So, a lot of people do that. We don't want to have that mindset of, chasing too much safety. Sometimes people do the opposite. They freeze. They freeze short term, waiting on the sidelines until things, quote unquote, feel right. Again, I think Brian might speak to some of this as far as like why that long term is not a good thing. But a lot of times people freeze and they try to time it perfectly.
Yep.
And the last one that I wrote down as a short term mindset during like a shutdown is what I would call like over rotating, or what that means is like selling equities, putting too much towards fixed income, or when yields are lower, you kind of over rotate and you move too much to safety. So that might make sense to most people, but there are some people out there that do that a lot.
Yeah.
One little headline and boom, you deviate from the plan.
Yeah. And the situation can be a little bit different depending upon each individual, because the people that are really truly financially impacted are those furloughed employees, or if you're a company, owner of a company that does a lot of contracting business with the federal government.
Yep.
You are seeing, furloughed employees, you're not getting paid. And I've heard, once again, it could just be noise, but typically they would retroactive pay back for those furloughed employees. I've heard noise coming out of the current administration saying they're not going to retroactive.
Oh, boy.
Trying to force the other side, obviously, to settle and approve a budget moving forward.
Yeah. Those things I just talked about are more for like just your
general
day-to-day
population.
investors, general population.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, but you're right. I was my wife and I just got back from an anniversary trip, and the shutdown.
Well, congrats, brother.
Well, appreciate that.
How many years?
26.
That's amazing,
Believe
man.
that. Someone stuck with me for
Halfway to
26
52,
years.
man.
You youngins.
That's right.
33 and counting.
Yeah, you're the elder.
I'm the elder
We got
statesman
you.
here.
But as we were returning, the shutdown had already started, and we were very appreciative that the TSA employees were actually there working, knowing that they were not going to get paid. So we were very thankful that they were there. So it's interesting, Ryan, as you're talking about some of these short-term mindsets, and this was very similar to some conversations I had, if you remember, last fall when the election was taking place. And I had a client that, to your point, you get emotional. And I remember he said, I want to move $100,000 out of my brokerage account. I want to move it into cash. And I begged him, don't do it. This is a very sporadic, emotional decision that you're making. And he's like, no, I'm going to do it. And since the election, we know the market has been very favorable. He's lost out on some growth.
Oh, it's still in cash?
Yeah, it's still in cash. He still has not made that move yet. And so those quick emotional decisions can have an impact because you get emotional, you get scared.
Yep.
And it was the same thing back in the fall with, whatever candidate you wanted, you were having concerns that the other one was going to get elected. So I wanted to speak more from what does this mean long term? What long term approach should you take as you're thinking about what's happening in the government right now? Some long term mindsets that I think are important. The first one is recognizing shutdowns are more political than economic regime changes. They're good conversation pieces. Mm-hmm. They're not the basis of how you should determine how to invest your retirement. Mm-hmm. And that's a really important aspect. Same thing with the election. People got into this. What am I going to do? Does it matter who's elected? They're conversation pieces. They're not a basis of how you should pick your retirement. Another one is staying committed to an investment plan or strategic asset allocation. If you work with us, we have different investment options. But what we stick to a lot of times is what is the evidence behind the investment? And we talk more about active management or more sticking to the strategy that's going to follow what the overall market is doing. Mm-hmm. And so the basis of how you pick is what do you think the market is going to do? And is this shutdown going to really have an impact a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Yeah.
And so that mindset I think is really important. Staying committed to that plan, using volatility as opportunities. Do you want to buy when it's low or do you want to buy when it's high?
Low. All day.
Buy low, sell high, brother.
What do people typically do?
Opposite.
Yeah.
The opposite, right? Because they get scared, they get out. Oh, the market's good. I got to get back into it.
Warren Buffett, best at that, man.
Right. And so when you have those opportunities, and who knows, right now we're in the middle of the shutdown. The market is actually improving, which kind of weird. Who knows what will happen if the shutdown continues? Who knows what will happen in the next week or so? But right now, the market seems to be pretty favorable. But if it does go down because of this, then maybe that's an opportunity to buy more. Mm-hmm. And then maintaining diversification across different asset classes, sectors. That is just wise, prudent ways to invest versus trying to put everything in a certain stock or a certain handful of stocks, because if those don't cooperate with you, then your money have a lot more risk associated with it. So I think it's just a good basis. It's a good time period when this is going on to just ask yourself, what's my long-term plan? What am I trying to do with this long-term? And does this really impact that for the long-term?
Yeah. And when we talk about if you've truly been impacted financially, as we talked about furloughed employees, those types of things, it still goes back to that long-term plan, because we would say, all right, you should have 3 to 6 months of liquidity. Well, it's for those types of things. When you have these life interruption events that occur during your lifetime, that you don't have to, you don't have to panic.
Yeah, and hopefully for those employees, the government employees that were impacted by this, hopefully they had that 3 to 6 months or whatever it is established. And some of them probably know, they're probably conditioned that, hey, if you're getting into this job, the reality of this happening, it's going to happen.
21 shutdowns in the last 50 years.
So you go into this knowing
every couple years
there's a possibility.
There's a strong possibility.
Yeah, and that's where we got that bucket plan we talked about. Now, soon, and later bucket, right? So if you got your buckets organized right, you don't need to panic. Yeah, and this is where having a good coach, a good confidant, a good financial professional to hold you accountable, to communicate what's going on, can keep people staying the course and not get emotional.
I think that's part of our jobs. Yes, we're supposed to give good information, we're supposed to give strategies, but part of what we do is just keep our clients on track. We're kind of psychologists in a ways, in some regards.
Yeah.
Making sure
sometimes talking them off the roof, right?
Right.
Like,
hey,
exactly don't jump.
That's right.
Don't jump. Just do what you're doing.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's really, when we talk about this, is stay the course. This is a quasi-political event that occurs, as we said, every couple years. Financial planning is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So don't overreact to things. Stay the course. Have regular communication with us, with your financial planners, with the professionals that you're working with. If you have uncertainty, if don't allow yourself and your emotions to take control of things. And that part of that, like I said, is just ongoing regular communication, with your financial professionals. And that's really the message we wanted to get out here today, is just to kind of give you a general overview of this current
event,
government shutdown. And could it last another 2 weeks? Maybe. Could it be could it be over tomorrow? It's possible.
Tortoise in the hare, man.
Yeah,
tortoise in the hare.
You never know, but
a lot of noise, but stay the course.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to end it there. Huddlers, as always, we greatly appreciate the time, whether you are listening or watching on YouTube. Once again, if you can get that, spread the news. Let other people, friends, if you found this valuable, let them know what we're doing. It's all going to come back to what we're really trying to do. Our purpose here is information, financial literacy, talking about, different topics in a very, normal manner. A manner in which people can understand.
When you're educated, you make better decisions.
Yep, exactly.
And we want to help.
Yeah. There we go. Until next time.
Cheers, everybody.
Huddlers out.